Hi there, and welcome to English Tales Time. Today, we'll explore the life of Hans Wilsdorf, the man who created Rolex, one of the most famous watch brands in the world. The story is simple and easy to understand, perfect for practicing your English listening. Have you ever heard of someone who lost everything but still built something amazing? Let's begin. Childhood and early life. Hans Wilsdorf was born on March 22, 1881, in Kulmbach, Germany. He grew up in a loving family with his parents and siblings. His father worked in the metal business, and his mother took care of the home. Life seemed normal and happy for young Hans. But everything changed when Hans was just 12 years old. First, his mother died. Then, only 1 year later, his father also passed away. In just 2 years, Hans became an orphan. This was a very difficult time for the young boy. After losing his parents, Hans and his siblings went to live with their aunts and uncles. Despite this sad start in life, Hans was lucky to have relatives who cared about his future. They made sure he received a good education and early career. Hans was a bright student. He studied at a good school in Germany and learned to speak several languages, including German, French, and English. These language skills would later help him in his international business. When Hans was 19 years old, he moved to Switzerland. There, he started working for a company that exported pearls and watches. This was his first experience with watches, and he quickly became interested in them. Hans was a hard worker. He paid attention to details and learned everything he could about the watch business. He noticed that pocket watches were common, but wristwatches were still rare. Most people thought wristwatches were just jewelry for women, not serious timepieces. But Hans saw something different. Seeing the future, he believed that wristwatches could be both accurate and useful for everyone. He thought, if I can make a wristwatch that keeps good time, people will want to wear it. In 1903, when he was 22 years old, Hans moved to London, England. This was a big step for a young man from Germany. In London, he continued to work in the watch business and learned about British culture and business practices. Hans had a clear vision for what he wanted to create. Starting his own business. In 1905, at just 24 years old, Hans Wilsdorf took a big risk. He started his own company in London with his brother-in-law, Alfred Davis. They called it Wilsdorf Davis. The company imported Swiss watch movements and put them into quality cases. People told him, wristwatches will never be accurate. They are too small and the movement of the arm will affect them. But Hans did not give up on his dream. He worked closely with Swiss watchmakers to create small, precise movements for his watches. Slowly, people started to notice the quality of his timepieces. The birth of Rolex. In 1908, Hans made an important decision. He created a new brand name for his best watches, Rolex. Why did he choose this name? He wanted a name that was short, easy to remember, and sounded the same in any language. There's also a story that Hans came up with the name while riding on a horse-drawn omnibus in London. He said he heard a voice whisper Rolex in his ear. True or not, the name became famous around the world. Hans was also very smart about marketing. He wanted people to think of quality, precision, and elegance when they heard the name Rolex. Earning respect. In 1910, a Rolex watch received the first Swiss wristwatch certification for precision. In 1914, a Rolex earned a Class A certificate from the Kew Observatory in England. This was usually only given to pocket watches. During World War I, soldiers began wearing wristwatches. They were more practical on the battlefield than pocket watches. This helped change people's minds. Hans saw the trend and made sure Rolex was ready. He continued improving his watches and built a strong reputation, innovation, and growth. In 1926, Rolex introduced the first waterproof and dustproof case, called the Oyster. In 1927, Mercedes Gleitze swam the English Channel with a Rolex Oyster. After more than 10 hours in cold water, the watch still worked. Hans placed a full-page ad in the newspaper. Then in 1931, Rolex created the first self-winding movement mitt perpetual rotor. It wound itself with the movement of the wrist. This is still used in Rolex watches today. Character and legacy. Hans married Florence Frances May Crotty, but they had no children. He focused on his work and helping others. He was kind to his employees and believed in the future of his company. After World War I, Hans moved the Rolex headquarters to Geneva, Switzerland, known for watchmaking. When Florence died in 1944, Hans created the Hans Wilsdorf Foundation in her honor. This foundation still owns Rolex and supports good causes. Hans led Rolex until his death on July 6, 1960, at the age of 79. Today, and final thoughts. Today, Rolex is one of the most recognized luxury brands in the world. Rolex watches are worn by world leaders, athletes, and movie stars. They are symbols of excellence, achievement, and timeless design. But above all, Rolex watches still do what Hans wanted. They tell time accurately, reliably, and in any condition. So what can we learn from Hans Wilsdorf? He started with almost nothing. He believed in his vision. He cared about quality. And he never gave up. Keep going. Like Hans did. Even when life gets hard, your greatest achievements might still be ahead.